All right. After being bitten by a radioactive bird, yours truly, the somewhat mannered C. Tuthill was compelled to become Kinius, the Skydude. These are the adventures of Kinius the Skydude, episode number 139. We are on a world tour, exploring Europe, exploring the world for the first time, and we are on the route of Alexander the Great. And yesterday we made it as far as Halicarnassus, and I thought we would get, I was overly ambitious and thought we would make it all the way to Egypt, and no, we did not. All right. Now, before we get going, I want to show you a way to use Google Maps to get URLs, well, to get coordinates and find any place that you're researching in the world. Okay, so let me go over here. All right, not the general channel. Let's stop that for a minute. Okay. Got to put my headphones on. All right, let's say, well, we need to start in Damascus today, okay? And then we're going to teleport from Damascus over to Gaza and move things a little bit, move things on today. Normally, I really want the flight hours, but I do understand the need to speed things up a little bit so it's not so dry. Okay. So we want to go to Damascus, okay? So we've got, let me make sure I get that up on the screen here. All right. So I've got the wiki page open for it. Now, up here in the corner of these wiki pages, or somewhere along the sidebar usually, are the coordinates for the place you want to find. Okay? You can copy and paste this, but it tends to grab... Yeah, it's that time. Sorry, bye-bye. Okay. So, but it normally grabs all the rest of the text with it. Coordinates, ... Okay, so you can copy that. And now let's go into your world map. But you'll have to delete out the coordinates part. And so, let me copy that again. Okay, copy the... I don't want to copy the link. I'm just doing a Control-C. Let me highlight all this. Very tricky. So yeah, it wants to grab a lot more. Kind of a pain in the butt. All right, let me try it again. Come on. Okay, Control-C. So if you come over into Microsoft Flight Simulator now, and you go into the world map and you go to search, and you paste that in there. Okay, again, it still brought the coordinates with it, but it actually popped up. All right, so at the bottom here, it says, is this where you want to go? And you click that. Well, that's not where I want to go. All right, so let me remove the coordinates part. See if we get it. That's not where we want to be. So hit and enter on that again. Oh. There we go. All right, so you got to remove the coordinates. Now we're back in Damascus. Okay, so that's one way to do it. If you want all the details, like street names, you can use Google Maps. But here's what I recommend. Let me go back over here to the Wikipedia page. All right. So let's say you want to do some research here now. Like, well, what is this? What is this street here? And blah, blah, blah. Click on those coordinates and open another page. Okay, you get this page here, which presents you with a way to view different maps. Bing Maps, Google Earth, OpenStreet. You come down the list here, they've got others too, like Apple Maps, which I've actually kind of find nice. And they provide you with satellite views. Okay, but there's a lot of different maps that you can pull open depending on what you're looking for. Let me pull open the Apple Maps here. All right. So you can do searches and but now you'll see that you like Bing Maps. Now you've got all the different street names and you can see everything. For example, I wanted to know You know, what is this called? It's called Umayan Square, even though it's a circle. All right, so this is basically here where it spawned us. This is the ancient city of Damascus. And Alexander the Great, that's a really neat building, by the way. I wonder if I doubt we'll see it. A lot of these places in Microsoft Flight Simulator, we don't have advanced graphics for them, photogrammetry. So it's kind of hit or miss sometimes on places in the Middle East at the moment. Looks like it's a giant computer fan. That's the world's greatest PC case. Definitely got one of the best cooling systems we've ever seen. Okay, so that's how you can now get to those places, find places on the map if you need to. You can also do that if you're out searching for maps to download. All right, let me go ahead and show you that real quick. You may have heard me talk about downloading maps before we fly it, which we don't want the computer... Sorry, we don't want them to stream our maps as we're flying it. We want the maps before we fly it. So if you go to options and go to general options and to data. All right, all the way at the very bottom, manual cache. You're going to need if rolling cache is, again, they'll be streaming you maps as you fly. All right, and you can set that. Now, if you go into manual cache, I think I filled mine up too much. I can't seem to download anymore at the moment. I'm going to have to delete some and try it again. Maybe even just blow the cache out. It's not a big deal. Just for this live streams. These live streams that we've been doing. But I've been going in and trying to get the best resolution maps I can get before we fly them. So give it a minute. I've got a lot of stuff in there, so it's taking its sweet time loading in. Hey, my mom just came in. How are you? Let me stop my microphone for a moment here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go back.
Make sure you tell your mother you love her if she's still around, because they won't be around forever. All right. So remember to tell your mothers you love them. Okay, so up here again. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you on this website. Let me go back before I clicked in the All right, when you first get in here and you're picking whichever map you want to visualize with, up at the top says Geo URL, right? Geo URL. It's a little bit easier to copy these, right? And copy that, Control C, and then come back to here and punch that into the search bar, Control V. And there you go. Bam. We're at Damascus. All right. If you want to cache the region, go ahead and click cache new region. Again, I've got too much stuff loaded at the moment that I can't cache anything else. But then select that, and you can then zoom in and out and select the difficulty, the level of detail that you want on each map. Now, don't go crazy if you have never done it before and start just downloading everything in high definition. It takes up it doesn't take up a lot of space. It takes up time. So if you go for broke and just start loading in major areas in high definition, let me show you what that's. Let me go ahead and click it. Even though I don't think it's going to allow me to download. It didn't work yesterday. But let me go ahead and show you how to zoom in. All right, we're already close down onto the map. So let's say I wanted to do this, whatever this Coliseum complex is over here. You left click and drag around the squares that you want. Okay. Anything in the middle is going to be high definition. Anything outside of that should be medium definition. As I zoom out, we're going to get, so we're still in very tiny grid. We zoom out a little bit more. Now we're in medium grid. Let's see over here, cache quality. Right, so anything I select, all this is now, because I selected high, it'll automatically get everything in the other areas around it in medium. Now let me go over to this part of the city. And let's say I wanted this part of the city in medium. Okay, left click and drag. Great. All right, now everything outside of that it's highlighted will be downloaded in low. But let's say you want to make sure that you get everything in low. Keep zooming out until you get a bigger grid system. There we are. Now we're in the low cache quality grid system. And double check everything, highlight everything around it. And now everything will download in, well, that will download in low. Okay, and then you give it a new name and then hit finish and download, and it will download. Again, don't go crazy when you're doing it for the first time like I've done and locked my computer up for hours trying to download maps. And again, it's not a lot. I'm not real certain why it takes so much time. We want to revert, and we want to go back and go back to Damascus. Okay, we're still here. Let's change our flight conditions today so we can see what we're doing. And we'll fly around Damascus for a minute, and then we'll use that same technique, and we'll just zip over to Gaza. All right, I wanted to put us near that complex. Lord. I don't see the complex now. That kind of looks, this is all supposed to be the ancient city. Even though these ruins look a little bit older. This area, anyway. Okay, so we'll go with it. These look like they're digging, and this area looks like they've dug. Okay, so let's now select that as our departure. They need to fix this. Once you set it, it should remember what you've just set and stop resetting. Okay. And here we go. Thanks again for tuning in. Thank you again to the Kings and Generals channel. So far, I really love your content. And I really hope you don't mind me using your content to illustrate some of the things that took place as we're traveling the route of Alexander the Great. And so far, no problems at all. no copyright violations or whatever. Maybe, hopefully they've seen it and they're not just taking a vacation. They haven't looked at the account, and at some point they're going to go, man, nah, we don't like that guy. Okay, pause, stop out. Okay, like I said, there's they could just be putting in a new building there for all I know. But this is the we are over now what they have considered the ancient part of the city of Damascus. Definitely now one of the largest cities that we've seen. As we've traveled down through here and through other areas, there's just been no development, no modern development, no buildings. And here we have major city. A lot of little tiny rivers over there. I love that, the way they built around all that. Nice airport way out there. So I can't find, at the moment, I haven't found a lot of information. Alexander the Great didn't have any fights here, or they would have done a video for it. And right at the moment, I just know he came through here. I don't know the details at the moment of why. Maybe when we watch the General's channel and we tune in to find out what happens in Gaza next, they'll tell us why he came to Damascus first. Probably for the same, I would think for weapons, right? Isn't Damascus famous for its steel and swords and all that? So mostly he was after money, right? But he had already just, after that battle at Issus, he scored heavily. He got all the riches that Darius had brought with him on his campaign to fund it. So basically he got, a large, I don't know how much of it was, but a good portion of the Achaemenid Persian Empire treasury. All right, so then he's going to head south. He's going to head southwest to Gaza. Okay, so let's go back to the main menu. And let's go back to our Google stuff here. And we will try to find Gaza. Okay. Yeah, that looks right. Jerusalem is just Bethlehem, and Jerusalem is just over here. So when we port in, we'll go ahead and fly over that way, because he came down again. He's coming from, there's Lebanon, Beirut, there's Damascus right here. I think we ended yesterday in Beirut or Tripoli. Well, I'm not sure where we were, but we came all the way around this corner. This is where the Battle of Issus was here, and we found that was a lot of fun, looking at and watching the battle for that yesterday. So that took place over here. So he starts heading south, comes down through here, and his generals take all that for him. He makes his way to Damascus, where we just were, and now he's traveling down here to Gaza. Let me right click. You can do it this way too. Right click on the map. First thing you'll get is a set of coordinates. Click on that. It's copied into your cache, basically memory. All right, paste that in there. Okay, here's Gaza. And again, if we zoom out a little bit, start here. There's Jerusalem. Gotta fly over Bethlehem. We'll add that in there. And then from there, we need to get to Cairo. And there's really not a whole lot to see between here and there. That must have been nuts to travel across. Actually, you know what's nuts traveling across is all of this back out to Carthage out here. Holy moly. In Rome Total War, this is nothing but a drag moving through these territories. All this, it's just so hot. Your troops are just to get cooked and beat up. All right, so let's do it. Let's go ahead and hit fly. And have a look at Gaza. And let me get my... Now we go to the King and General's channel. I have posted the playlist for all the conquests. That looks like a fun D&D game. I still haven't finished Baldur's Gate. I'm so bad about finishing games. I haven't finished Baldur's Gate. Haven't really finished Bannerlord. That one survival game that we were doing. Haven't finished that. Oh, this got us in trouble yesterday. I have to turn it off. Or hide it. I can't play that Fallout commercial. That caused a copyright problem. Okay. What happened to the sound? Huh. Oh, I know what I did.
Which Arian tells us were generously granted. It is tempting to say that their flattery might have swayed the king, but it is equally possible that a mix of success and elation at the SIWA revelation had Alexander in a good mood.
No,
emotion.
Sorry, that's all the way into Egypt already.
Tired of weak and boring lighters? Meet this new incredible fire torch lighter. This new incredible electric dual arc torch is the ultimate survival.
Oh my gosh, come on.
Hit the famous desert oracle at SIWA.
That was awesome. If you didn't catch yesterday's episode and you don't know anything about the Siege of Tyre, Alexandria's Siege of Tyre, that was amazing. I really recommend go back and watch yesterday's episode because I'll be showing you what it looks like today as they're showing you the maps and how we went about it. So I've overlaid the video on top of it in the corner so you can kind of watch both at the same time at times. And then we did the Battle of Issus. And I was right over the top of it, and we got to really see where the battle took place and really get down in there. And so yesterday's episode, it had a lot of dry spots, but the Battle of Tyre and Issus were highlights of yesterday, for sure. Okay.
For your own life-changing events, you'll want to be looking at...
Oh, my lord. Come on.
3. Seal in moisture. King's right-hand man. The king didn't just want accommodation or riches now, he wanted the entirety.
See, yeah, he didn't really need...
And perhaps beyond.
The riches.
The next objective was to the south, Egypt. As the Macedonian army, victorious in 5 major clashes since crossing into Asia, rushed into Palestine, it received the immediate surrender of every city in the region except one. That single defiant was Gaza, a formidable hilltop stronghold controlling the approaches to Egypt. Like Tyre, it too would have to be taken. Unfortunately for Alexander, Gaza's Persian governor Tanis had been proactive during the siege on Tyre, taking the measure of hiring Arab mercenaries and stocking up his city with plentiful stores to withstand a siege of his own domain. The 160-mile march south through Phoenicia and Palestine was a harsh one, despite the lack of conflict. Refreshment was hard to come by, and the climate, during the Near Eastern summer, was incredibly arid. The army's salvation was the fleet element, commanded by Alexander's closest companion, Hephaestion, which kept the advancing soldiers supplied with food and water. Acche, known during the Crusades as Acca, was passed first, followed by Joppa and Ascalon. This simple progress finally came to a swift halt when Gaza loomed large on the horizon in September of 332 BC. Alexander's army took up position opposite a section of the fortification on the southern side of the city, which the Macedonians considered weakest.
All right, we're going to pause it right there, and we're going to come down in here. And we're going to go into the simulator now. Now, he's away from the coast a little bit, and he's in between 2 little mountain ranges. Let me pause. Don't know which direction it spawned us in. Okay, but we're in Gaza. So, we're away from the coast a little bit, and then there's some mounds. I don't know if that is the hill. Really hard to make out the terrain. But that seems to be the only, like, hill structure in the area. Okay, and then there was another one to the north. There's the port. This whole thing where the farming is now, this whole area here could have been the site. That could have been the... I mean, it's hard to tell. If he's stopping and he's going to be fighting, there must have been, you know, it must have been a much more major city. Something, and it's all of this in here. But I don't know. Let's let me go back out to the map and see if we can get some clarification and find out just if Wiki's got the Alexander's Battle of Gaza location. All right, Siege Gaza, They got a wiki. Siege Gaza wiki. Okay, good, great. So we can get coordinates. Geo coordinate. Copy. I have to go back out. Sorry, folks. I saw that Henny stopped in the chat room for a minute. I don't know if you're there still. I hope your father's okay. Yesterday you were telling me that he had to go to the ER, and I didn't ask for specifics, and I don't need them. All I do want to say is I hope your father is okay. That's all that matters. Okay, so that'll put us right over the spot. Yeah, no, I was wrong altogether. It's right in the middle of some... Yeah, because I was looking out into this plain over here, right? And this little mountainy thing. Whatever. But I was in the wrong spot. So yeah, they built all this stuff right over the top of the ancient city. As people do, mostly. Yeah, let's put this back in here. Okay. Now we know exactly where it is. It's unfortunate, like the last one at Issus, the terrain still looks exactly the same. We were able to see the stream that they had to cross. We got to see all the mountains that were in the area. It really, it hasn't changed much since the time of Alexander. And so it made for a really compelling lesson yesterday. Okay, pause. Hop out. Look straight down. And go straight down. Yeah, and unfortunately this one isn't gonna, there's just nothing left. Let's get the drone moving much faster. Put the drone speed all the way up to max. Okay. Yeah, there's just nothing here now. So that, you can't even tell where the old city was. You don't see any remnants of the walls. You can't make anything out, which is a real drag. That, Oh. I got tilted. All right. So all we got to link us to the past is, remember they said it was arid and everybody was hot and the fleet was supporting their travels down through this stretch. You can imagine the fleet was parked out there somewhere. All right, let's get back to the battle then. Let's get back over here to the siege of Gaza. And go.
Aiming to take advantage of subterfuge, the king ordered his engineers to begin mining beneath the Gazan walls, but to begin their work from far out of sight. At the same time, siege towers were ordered forward to distract Battus's garrison from the true threat beneath the soft earth.
The sappers.
Due to the sandy and easily excavated ground surrounding Gaza, sapping operations progressed rapidly. However, the siege towers had massive trouble rolling along such uneven hilly terrain due to the sand, which would frequently trap the wheels and cause delays. Constant jarring of this kind eventually caused the flooring within the towers to break apart, injuring soldiers and making further approach impossible. Reluctantly, as the sun was already close to setting, Alexander decreed that the army halt their assault for the evening. After an uneventful night, before operations commenced, the king made a traditional sacrifice, asking for the gods' aid. While the ritual was ongoing, it is said that a crow flew overhead and dropped a lump of dry mud on Alexander's head before taking a perch on the nearest siege tower, and this was viewed as a grim omen by the soldiery and their monarch. Alexander consulted his personal soothsayer, Aristander, who interpreted the event to foretell the fall of the city, but also harm that would come to Alexander during the clash. He recommended that the army take no action that day, and as a sign of just how superstitious Alexander was, the king acquiesced. Deciding the passivity of their foes to be a sign of weakness, Battus's mercenary Arab troops launched a brazen sortie out of the city gates in an attempt to destroy Alexander's siege towers and kill as many Macedonians as they could. Having taken the first of the enemy soldiers by surprise, Battus's Arabs initially met with some success and reached the towers with relatively little struggle. However, when Alexander caught on to what exactly was happening, he led his companions and Hypaspists into battle from the front line, crashing into the spot where the fighting was fiercest. This decisive intervention stabilized the engagement and tipped the momentum towards the Macedonians. But the king was not going to escape unscathed, as the soothsayer had predicted. Quintus Curtius Rufus tells us of how one of Battus's hired swords pretended to be a deserter and threw himself before the king, asking for pardon. Alexander, always magnanimous, told the man to rise and be received. Thus able to get close, the Arab suddenly retrieved his sword and lunged at the king's neck. With athletic prowess, Alexander shifted to the side, avoiding the lethal blow, only to be wounded by an arrow in the shoulder almost immediately.
That sucks.
In third quarter planning, Adam.
It's so interesting, these tales, you know, like the soothsayer. He wasn't even planning to do it. It's just everything happened. Right? He wasn't planning to attack. He wasn't going to. He decided he was not going to. And then all of a sudden, they made it a rush, and he just kind of threw it out the window and ran in there with his pals. And bad things happened. All right. Turn off the sound on that. Hit play. Let me just fade it for a minute. It's so funny. Yesterday, I really we were looking at that Fallout preview for the new television show on Amazon. And I was commenting about, hey, I'd really like to see it. I don't really know much about it. I know it was a game. I know it was a popular game and people love it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I woke up this morning and looked in my channel and it's like, copyright violation. What? Uh-oh, the Kings and Generals, they didn't like me using their stuff. So I went to go look at it and it's like, nah, it was the Fallout commercial. That's being a little bit silly. So people that are live streaming and they want to talk about it, they can't play the commercial. That is so stupid, right? You're trying to advertise your show. You want people to talk about your show, yet they can't play their previews in their live stream if they're monetized, or I don't even know if you have to be monetized or not. But either way, I got something, so I had to delete it. So I had to delete it. All right. So you got wounded.
Back inside the city. However, they retreated in high spirits, their morale buoyed by the Macedonian commander's apparent severe injury or death on the battlefield. Somewhat less to their liking, Alexander too was, despite his terrible wound, incredibly happy. Aristander
I'm happy.
Harm had come to him, of course, but now the other prediction, that Gaza would soon fall, would surely come to pass. While the king recovered from yet another near miss that might have ended his life, he commanded his army to begin yet another monumental feat of engineering. In an arc around Alexander's siege lines, the earth was piled up and up over the course of several weeks until it created a mound that was as high as the escarpment on which the city sat. Onto that encircling artificial hillock was placed the heaviest Macedonian artillery that now could unleash devastating missiles from its new higher position. It was now October. 2 months after the king's initial investment of the city, he launched a withering bombardment from the mound, which...
Think about that. They must not have had really, I mean, maybe they did have really good archers. But he's like, at this point, he's like, I'm going to take my sweet time. Just thinking about, I mean, what he did in Tyre just blows the mind. This is another one of those where he just has all of his people. Okay, so the ground's all jacked up. Okay, well, let's put in level ground. Better yet, let's build mounds higher than their walls or up high enough that we can just sit there and play fish, you know, in a barrel and have some fun with this. And again, just who knows? Maybe this is only like a city block as we look down there and we zoom into the spot where this is supposed to have taken place. We don't know how. I don't know the dimensions on these things. So maybe it was actually a really, really tiny place. Oops. Yeah, so nothing was here.
cracked open a portion of the city walls and allowed his elites to breach them. Despite fearsome resistance, Alexander's army was not to be denied its prize. Gaza was taken, looted, and its male population wiped out, while the women...
After the siege, Midas refused to submit to Alexander. With extreme rage, Alexander tied his legs with a rope behind a chariot and dragged his body around the wall of Gaza, torturing him to death. Wow. He hasn't been that, as far as we know, he hasn't been that cruel about anything since Granicus. But what do we know? What do we really know? We don't. We don't. But, you know, that's a special kind of death. Making me waste all my time with you people when I've got to go to Egypt to find out if I'm a deity. They keep saying God, God. You've got to, in my head anyway, and I've got to really keep it differentiated. You know, God is, he's not a god. They use it too loosely. He's a deity. It's still immortal, but you have, you know, you're like a mutant. You have some sort of X factor or whatever. Some sort of blessing on you, but you're still mortal. But the same as Gilgamesh. Maybe that's a lot of the reason why he's moving around here, is trying to find that elixir now. How do we get to rise up to the next level, which is still not God? It's Demiurge. And there might even be some steps in between here and there. But Demiurge is closer to archangel-like being. You know, and then there's still a whole lot of progression up to God. So anyway, it's the little things that bother me like that. And forgive me, Kings and Generals channel, I wasn't making critique of your content. That's just the way that, you know, people describe things to just get along with it quickly, and they don't want to explain the whole deity thing. I don't know, whatever. Like I said, it's just me.
And children were sold as slaves. Alexander finally crossed into Egypt now that the way was clear, reaching the gateway to the Nile, Pelusium, in just a week. When he and his army arrived, they were met not by a dogged garrison of defenders, but by a cheering crowd of overjoyed people who regarded the invading Macedonians as liberators. As the Romans would in a later age, the Persians had treated Egypt as an of its own domain.
Now, I don't want to really make people too mad, but, you know, history repeating itself, right? And the people south of Gaza are like, man, thank you. We don't really like those people. And that's probably all I should say about that. Okay, so we're going to be heading, he goes to the next town in a week. And I noticed on that map, if I just rewind a second, it says Tanis. I'm all off now. Right there. Okay, Tanis. Now, that jumps out at me because if you're a fan of Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, they talk about Tanis in the opening sequences of the movie. When he's back in the United States and he's at his university, and his buddy comes to visit him, and the government comes to visit him, and everything is being set in place for him to go after the Ark of the Covenant. They mentioned Tanis. So on our way down there, I was going to immediately try to teleport us over to
the Achaemenid
Cairo, but we've got to go to Tanis. So, all right. Thought this was a simulator show. It is. All right, so that's looking down. That's right where the fight in Gaza took place. Again, they were so angry. They didn't want any the remnants of it in history to survive, and they just have leveled the place. None of this probably exists anymore. Today. Right now. Probably all flat again. You don't like those people over there. Okay. Now, back to the interior of our plane. Unpause, autopilot is on. That's nice. It was nice of them. And now we're going to Jerusalem. And we're way up high. Do an alt hold. We'll be passing by and we're losing speed. What's up? Okay. Throttle's in. 10,000 feet on the altimeter. Yeah, let's keep going. Not the altimeter, the altitude. Yeah. No. There's 4.6. Okay, flight level change. Now pull back on the throttle. Get your seatbelt on. The plane is going to start going down now. I've initiated a flight level change, so you have to pull back on the throttle or the computer won't do its descent. Because you'll be overspeeding and the computer doesn't want you to rip a wing off in a descent. Okay, another thing I can do so I'm not descending so fast is pull the propeller back all the way to minimum. You can even feather it if you want, but so what that does is we've got a cool propeller that we can, yeah, see what I've done? I've accidentally shut the propeller and the plane off by putting it down there. Okay, so don't do that. At least put it to minimum. So we can change the angle of the propeller blades. So with it full forward, the blades are turning basically to chop at the air harder, which, you know, really grips the air, if you will, and propels us forward faster. More power. When you pull the blue lever back, it's changing the angle, so it's like, it's just kind of moving through the air, taking a little bite out of the air as opposed to, you know, a really big chunk. Good for cruising and descending. Only 13 minutes to Jerusalem. That's nice. All right. $10,000 feet. Whoa. My drone camera remained where I put it last time and has not reset. So, reset. Back up behind the plane. Welcome to the Middle East. We've never really flown it. We have never really flown Europe. We've always pretty much stayed in Colorado and did our cross countries around the United States. This is all new territory for us, for me. Now, if you're into religion, and history, we're there. So looking down, you may recognize some of these names and the stories associated with them. You might be able to pick out landmarks and that would be really cool to have that. You know, we didn't do to see if there are any stories around here. We didn't pull up Bushtalk Radio today. Quickly check here, 6,000. A little bit more into the throttle so we don't stall out while I'm trying to do what I'm doing here. All right, push talk. All right, so we are down here. There's our icon on the map. Okay, so this is something we passed over there.
The ancient synagogue of Gaza was built in 508 AD during the Byzantine period and was discovered in 1965. It was located in the ancient port city of Gaza, then known as Mayumas, currently the Ramal district of Gaza City. The mosaic was dated 508 CE and measured 3 meters 9.8 feet high by 1.9 meters 6.2 feet wide. It was originally described as depicting a female saint playing the harp. The Egyptian archaeologists stated that the mosaic was in fact an Orpheus mosaic, a Greek god who was commonly associated with Christ or David and used in Byzantine art. Shortly after the mosaic's discovery, the main figure's face was gouged out. When Israel captured the Gaza Strip in the 1967 Six-Day War, the mosaic was transferred to the Israel Museum for restoration.
All right.
The Battle of Ascalon took place on the 12th of August 1099, shortly after the capture of Jerusalem, and is often considered the last action of the First Crusade. The Crusader army led by Godfrey of Bouillon defeated and drove off a Fatimid army, securing the safety of Jerusalem. The Crusaders completed their primary objective of capturing Jerusalem on the 15th of July 1099. In early August, they learned of the approach of a 20,000-strong Fatimid army under Vizier Al-Afdal Shahanshah. Under Godfrey's command, the 10,200-strong Crusader army took the offensive, leaving the city on the 10th of August to risk everything on a great battle against the approaching Muslims. The Crusaders marched barefoot, carrying the relic of the True Cross with them, accompanied by Patriarch Arnulf of Chox. The army marched south from Jerusalem, approaching the vicinity of Ascalon on the 11th and capturing Egyptian spies who revealed Al-Afdal's dispositions and strength. At dawn on the 12th of August, the Crusader army launched a surprise attack on the Fatimid army still sleeping in its camp outside the defensive walls of Ascalon. The Fatimids had failed to post enough guards, leaving only a part of their army capable of fighting. The Crusaders quickly defeated the half-ready Fatimid infantry, while the Fatimid cavalry barely fought at all. The battle was over in less than an hour. The Crusader knights reached the center of the camp, capturing the vizier's standard and personal baggage, including his sword. Some Fatimids fled into the trees and were killed by Crusader arrows and lances, while others begged for mercy at the Crusaders' feet and were butchered en masse. The terrified vizier fled by ship to Egypt, leaving the Crusaders to kill any survivors and gather up a vast amount of loot. Ibn al-Qalanisi estimated 12,700 Fatimid dead. The first Muslim attempt to recapture Jerusalem ended in complete defeat, but Godfrey failed to exploit the victory and take Ascalon, whose Fatimid garrison was willing to surrender only to Raymond of Toulouse, a condition Godfrey would not accept. The Fatimid base in Ascalon remained a thorn in the side of the Kingdom of Jerusalem and would not fall until the Siege of Ascalon of 1153.
Okay. So, over here, the Judean mountains.
The Judean Mountains, or Judean Hills, is a mountain range in Israel and the West Bank where Jerusalem and several other biblical cities are located. The mountains reach a height of 1,026 meters. The Judean Mountains can be separated to a number of sub-regions, including the Mount Hebron Ridge, the Jerusalem Ridge and the Judean Slopes. These mountains formed the heartland of the Kingdom of Judah, where the earliest Jewish settlements emerged.
I wanted to make sure, since we've been traveling high over those mountains, I turned down the level on the terrain, and I turned down the trees. It was just too far away to really get any detail. So I want to change that now. I don't know that I want to go down to the grasses and bushes yet, but I at least want to get the trees into ultra. And we're going to start coming down to the buildings, so let's turn those up. Please like and subscribe, and that would help me get a new computer so that yours truly, can turn these sliders up for you. If I start getting beyond 100%, that's what this computer is like, nah, man, I just can't do it. Right? So this is not a real beefy system, and to let you know what it's compatible with graphic-wise, and this is where it ends, I can't upgrade any further, is the AMD RX 580. That's right. That's where yours truly is at graphic-wise. I know, stop laughing. I know. Stop laughing, that's cruel now. It's starting to get cruel. You're poor. Stop it. Stop it. Well, now I've got to... Stop it. I know. Anyway, yours truly would love to be able to slide these up all the way. We don't have to worry about anything. And it's going to run, and then we can turn on all the shadows. We can, I mean, if I can do all that at high, then all the other stuff, all the other icing on the cake that I've had to turn down for these shows. And I still really can't comfortably stream at 1080, so I apologize for the downgrade for these. Back into the 1280 by 720. Yeah, I want to be able to do like the other guys do. I want to be able to do 4K, 8K, and give you an 8K Microsoft Flight Simulator experience for these Skydude adventures and beyond. Please like and subscribe. Okay, so let's go for broke. Let's do turn them up high, and I'll show you. This computer's gonna just... If it's having a good day, I think it'll try. But I'm already seeing the micro lag. Pop, pop, pop. I've had to come down. Everybody's like, I run at like 10,000 hertz. I've had to come down to 30 hertz. Not even 48. That's where Edison says the frames per second really start getting lifelike. At 48. Everybody's like, well, 30 FPS and 60 FPS. I would love to be up in the 60s and beyond. That's cool. But it's almost now getting too fast, because again, all you need is a minimum. You need to be right at 48, and at 48 is reality, closer to what our eyes see. Maybe that's been updated since this time, and maybe the faster hertz will be better. But motion picture is 24, so I'm at 30, and just need to try to cap everything here. All right, where are we at? Let's check our cockpit. Change the range. All right. That orange square is Bethlehem, and then the turn to Jerusalem. Okay. So I'm imagining that's what this is. What interesting terrain. Nothing's jagged, everything's just rolling to these mounds, just mound. As we learned in the last day or two, that most large mounds are funerary. And then up after that, then they upgraded you to a mausoleum. But it almost makes you think that over time, the way this has happened is mounds. All right, so now we're definitely in Jesus territory. And so
the Judean Mountains, or Judean Hills, is
we've already done
a
it.
range in Israel and the West Bank where Jerusalem and several other biblical cities are located. The mountains reach a height of 1,026.
All right. Pause here. Well, a little bit further. It's really saying it's over there, more the ancient. Let me pause and I'll show you what I'm talking about here on Bushtalk. Bushtalk is saying Bethlehem proper, or Jesus Bethlehem, is down here at like 150 degrees now. So let's take us out of nav mode and put us in a heading mode. It won't let me do it active paused. Let me see if I can change my heading during active pause. Yeah, that works. Need to get that to about 150. Okay. Unpause and then switch over to heading mode. Okay, it took. Okay. So now, let's look back over here. All right, pause. Based on that, we need to turn south now. So back to heading. Normally you don't have the luxury of doing this paused. Pause. All right. It's going to be on our right side. I'm trying to get back to drone mode, and it's if any instruments appear on the screen, it's not drone mode. And sometimes if that's drone mode. It should have nothing on the screen. You can't control your plane in drone mode. So if I were to just unpause it, plane will probably crash. Okay. This is right below us here. Wow. You know, since the time of Jesus, this is Bethlehem right here that we're looking at. That's it. You're like, that's what? Look at all of our own neighborhoods, how big and congested they have become since the United States has been founded. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Henning. His father's okay. All right. And, you know, there aren't skyscrapers everywhere in the whole region. And that is nuts to me, because the way we are here in the United States. What? The heck is the Bethlehem one? Am I in the wrong spot? I am. I'm a dummy. We're in the wrong spot. Now I need to turn around and go 30 degrees. I'm sorry. I was latched onto the Judean thing, the mountains. All right, so let's get back to the cockpit. We need to get this. Okay. Thank you for the update. And just continue to think positive for everything to be dandy. Right. So we need to turn almost all the way around. We were probably right there, and I jacked this up. All right, now I'll put it a little bit more. All right, let's put it straight north again. Going to the home place of baby Jesus.
Bethlehem is a city located in the central West Bank, Palestine, about 10 kilometers south of Jerusalem. Its population is approximately 25,000 people. It is the capital of the Bethlehem Governorate. The economy is primarily tourist-driven, peaking during the Christmas season, when Christians make pilgrimage to the Church of the Nativity. Rachel's tomb, an important Jewish holy site, is located at the northern entrance of Bethlehem. The earliest known mention of Bethlehem was in the Amarna correspondence of 1350 to 1330 BCE, when the town was inhabited by the Canaanites. The Hebrew Bible, which says that the city of Bethlehem was built up as a fortified city by Rehoboam, identifies it as the city David was from and where he was crowned as the King of Israel. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke identify Bethlehem as the birthplace of Jesus. Bethlehem was destroyed by the Emperor Hadrian during the 2nd century Bar Kokhba revolt. Its rebuilding was promoted by Empress Helena, mother of Constantine the Great, who commissioned the building of its great Church of the Nativity in 327 CE. The church was badly damaged by the Samaritans, who sacked it during a revolt in 529, but was rebuilt a century later by Emperor Justinian I. Bethlehem became part of Jund following the Muslim conquest in 637. Muslim rule continued in Bethlehem until its conquest in 1099 by a crusading army, who replaced the town's Greek Orthodox clergy with a Latin one. In the mid-13th century, the Mamluks demolished the city's walls, which was subsequently rebuilt under the Ottomans in the early 16th century. Control of Bethlehem passed from the Ottomans to the British at the end of World War I. Bethlehem came under Jordanian rule during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and was later captured by Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War. Since the 1995 Oslo Accords, Bethlehem has been administered by the Palestinian Authority. Following an influx of refugees as a result of Israeli advances in the 1967 war, Bethlehem has a Muslim majority, but is still home to a significant Palestinian Christian community. It is now encircled and encroached upon by dozens of Israeli settlements and the Israeli West Bank barrier, which separates both Muslim and Christian communities from their land and livelihoods, and sees a steady exodus of those from both communities being driven out.
I think Jesus should come back and tell them, hey, this is my house. You guys just get out, just step aside, get out. You go over there, you go over there, you go over there. This is Jesus town now. All right. So, yeah. Jesus town. Much more development, and we have larger buildings, and that makes much more sense than the last place we were looking at. All right, what else did we have out here? Over here to our right, across the road a ways, Church of the Nativity.
The Church of the Nativity, or Basilica of the Nativity, is a basilica located in Bethlehem in the West Bank. The grotto it contains holds a prominent religious significance to Christians of various denominations as the birthplace of Jesus. The holy site known as the Nativity Grotto is thought to be the cave in which Jesus was born. In 135, Emperor Hadrian had the site above the grotto converted into a worship place for Adonis, the mortal lover of Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of beauty and desire. Jerome noted in 420 that the grotto had been consecrated to the worship of Adonis, and that a sacred grove was planted there in order to completely wipe out the memory of Jesus from the world. The site was associated with the birth of Jesus at least since the 2nd century CE, is attested by early Christian theologian Origen of Alexandria, who wrote around 248 CE. In Bethlehem the cave is pointed out where he was born, and the manger in the cave where he was wrapped in swaddling clothes. And the rumor is in those places, and among foreigners of the faith, that indeed Jesus was born in this cave, who is worshipped and reverenced by Christians. The grotto is the oldest site continuously used as a place of worship in Christianity, and the basilica is the oldest major church in the Holy Land. The church was originally commissioned by Constantine the Great a short time after his mother Helena's visit to Jerusalem and Bethlehem in 325 to 326, on the site that was traditionally considered to be the birthplace of Jesus. That original basilica was likely built between 330 to 333, being already mentioned in 333, and was dedicated on 31st of May 339. It was destroyed by fire during the Samaritan revolts of the 6th century, possibly in 529, and a new basilica was built a number of years later by Byzantine Emperor Justinian, who added a porch or narthex, and replaced the octagonal sanctuary with a cruciform transept complete with 3 apses, but largely preserved the original character of the building, with an atrium and a basilica consisting of a nave with 4 side aisles. The Church of the Nativity, while remaining basically unchanged since the Justinianic reconstruction, has seen numerous repairs and additions, especially from the Crusader period, such as 2 bell towers, wall mosaics and paintings. Over the centuries, the surrounding compound has been expanded, and today it covers approximately 12,000 square meters, comprising 3 different monasteries, 1 Greek Orthodox, 1 Armenian Apostolic, and 1 Roman Catholic, of which the first 2 contain bell towers built during the modern era. The silver star marking the spot where Christ was born, inscribed in Latin, was stolen in October 1847 by Greek monks who wished to remove this Catholic item. Since 2012, the Church of the Nativity is a World Heritage Site and was the first to be listed by UNESCO under Palestine. A 250-year-old understanding among religious communities, the status quo, applies to the site.
All right, so yeah, you can imagine little baby and teen Jesus running all over these hills, right? Supposed to be a cave around here, which I don't know. I don't know the area that well. I can't seem to zoom in any closer down to the map there. one doesn't give us any details. Nope. Either way, we did it. We found the found his home. You know, and I wonder about all those other stories. Is like, well, where did this take place, and where did this take place? And these guys that are in the story, you know, the council. It would be neat to know where all that stuff was. Looking around, oh, they were over here, and it would be neat to know. Forgive me, I didn't grow up going to Catholic school. I didn't go up. Our folks were like, if you want to go that direction, that's entirely up to you. So it wasn't forced on me. But as an adult, I kind of almost wish I would have, because then I'd have that knowledge in my head somewhere. As to the routes and travels of Jesus, you know, where was Lazarus' place, you know? Things like that. All right. Now it is time to... I want to save us some time. It's already 2:22 in the afternoon. It's time for a break anyway. But I wanted to show, when I started the show, I was giving a quick demonstration on how to get to any particular place in the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator and get right to it. All right, so if we come back in here and we go back to the main menu, what we're going to do is we're going to move over to Tarsus now. They didn't specifically say that Alexander has done anything there. Tanis. But in the Raiders of the Lost Ark, in the opening scenes, not opening, but in the first half of the film, Act 2 maybe, they're back in Washington or wherever they're at, wherever he's teaching at, and the government guys show up, and his buddy shows up, and they mention Tanis. Maybe it was their friend that had found Tanis. Okay, so Alexander had that tussle there. I wonder if it's still called that today. Well, we'll find it. This is what the demonstration was about. So go out to Google. Oops. Tanis. Well, there's Tanis Wiki. Oops, you're not seeing it. One moment. Okay. So let me bring that screen over to my screen so I can read it better. Boy, that text is small. It's on the wrong screen. One. Okay. Ancient Akkadian. Okay. Coptic Tani. Archaeological site. Important archaeological site in the northeastern Nile Delta of Egypt, and the location of the city of the same name. It's located on the Tanatic branch of the Nile, which is long since silted up. The first study of Tanis dates to 1798 during Napoleon Bonaparte's expedition to Egypt. Engineer Pierre Jacquetin drew up a map of the site in the description of first excavated in 1825. Well, that kind of is weird with the Indiana Jones thing, because I thought their buddy, that was the thing, that he had uncovered it. There they discovered 2 pink granite sphinxes. Sphinx. William Matthew Flinders Petrie. I've heard that before. The work was taken over by Pierre Montet, 1929-1956, who discovered the royal necropolis dating to the 3rd immediate period. Today, the main parts of the temple dedicated to Amun-Ra can still be distinguished by the presence of large obelisks that mark the various pylons, as in other Egyptian temples, now fallen to the ground and lying in a single direction. They may have been knocked down by a violent earthquake during the Byzantine era, or pushed over by Alexander's guys, but I think that he would have been very respectful of what was there. Because, I mean, he's coming to liberate them, but he's also coming to get red-pilled. He knows the journey. He's kind of like on the same kind of a quest, in my head anyway. He's on the same kind of quest as Gilgamesh was. So not only is he doing all this stuff, establishing the history of deityhood, you've got to go where the information comes from. I think you would have been very respectful. Don't knock anything down. I'm at the Old Testament down here. He was hoping to discover traces that would confirm the accounts of the Old Testament. After Ramesses' abandonment, Tanis became the seat of power of the pharaohs of the 21st dynasty and later the 22nd dynasty. Along with Bubastis. The rulers of these 2 dynasties supported their legitimacy as rulers of Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt with traditional titles and building works, although they pale compared to those of the height of the New Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. After the 22nd dynasty, Tanis lost its status of royal residence, but became in turn the capital of the 19th nome of Lower Egypt. Starting from the 30th dynasty, Tanis experienced a new phase of building development which endured during the Ptolemaic period. So Ptolemy is one of the general's buddies, best friends of Alexander the Great. And after his death, I believe that Ptolemy ended up becoming the ruler of Egypt, or, that was his territory. So they're talking about they experienced a new building development which endured during the Ptolemaic period. It remained populated until its abandonment in Roman times. In late antiquity, it was the seat of the bishops of Tanis, who adhered to the Coptic Orthodox Church. Okay, but what we're in here for is we're looking for this, the coordinates. Click on that. Okay, I like, well, here, let's try Google Maps. Okay. And right click where the point is. Left click on the coordinates. It's copied to the clipboard. Then we can come in here, paste it. All right. Now we're over Tanis. That doesn't look like it's changed since back then. Put us right on top of all this cool stuff. I mean, you definitely, that's what I was expecting to see in Gaza. At least they would leave it there, right? But they were too humiliated. They got beat up by Alexander the Great. And they leveled it all. They don't want you knowing that it was there. It almost does it's almost a good thing that I guess some of these sites went and became abandoned. And they moved on and just left it. So we still have it. There is so much in this world that when it's all flooding my mind at once, like all this information that exists now out there that we were never taught in school. All these histories that go back even further and further now, they might have to adjust all the timelines because of all this new information, archaeological information that's been coming out in the modern era. So it could end up pushing history back 100,000 years. Okay.
Tanis is an important archaeological site in the northeastern Nile Delta of Egypt and the location of a city of the same name. It is located on the Tanitic branch of the Nile, which has long since silted up. The first study of Tanis dates to 1798 during Napoleon Bonaparte's expedition to Egypt. Engineer Pierre Jaquetin drew up a map of the site in the Description de l'Egypte. It was first excavated in 1825 by Jean-Jacques Ryford, who discovered the two pink granite sphinxes now in the Musée du Louvre, and then by François-Auguste Ferdinand Marriott between 1860 and 1864, and subsequently by William Matthew Flinders Petrie from 1883 to 1886. The work was taken over by Pierre Montet from 1929 to 1956, who discovered the royal necropolis dating to the Third Intermediate Period in 1939. The Mission Française des Fous de Tanis has been studying the site since 1965 under the direction of Jean Yoyot and Philippe Brissaud, and François Leclerc since 2013. Today, the main parts of the temple dedicated to Amun-Re can still be distinguished by the presence of large obelisks that mark the various pylons as in other Egyptian temples. Now fallen to the ground and lying in a single direction, they may have been knocked down by a violent earthquake during the Byzantine era. They form one of the most notable aspects of the Tanis site. Archaeologists have counted more than 20. This accumulation of remnants from different epochs contributed to the confusion of the first archaeologists who saw in Tanis the biblical city of Zoan, in which the Hebrews would have suffered pharaonic slavery. Pierre Montet, in inaugurating his great excavation campaigns in the 1930s, began from the same premise, hoping to discover traces that would confirm the accounts of the Old Testament. His own excavations gradually overturned this hypothesis, even if he was defending this biblical connection until the end of his life.
Wow. So, I mean, at least we can see in the ground very clearly. They haven't built up around it. Basically, it hasn't really been touched since then. These look like areas of outer wall. Don't know. Are you an entryway? Quick way to get down the hill, the slide. I wonder if these are the little things, the pillars to talk about, but you would think that they would be in the city. But something was going on here. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, well, they let some people build buildings over here. Probably to house, hopefully, to house all the archaeological people. And a lot going on this side too. Looks like something fun would have been there. I mean, they spent all the time to get that all level and flat, and yeah, something fun was there. Or horrible, you know? But in certain histories dealing with the Middle East, and they talk about they used to have lots of large towers like in Tolkien. And I guess as we would go further and further towards Iraq and Babylon, it was reported in certain tablets that they had humongous towers. Humongous towers, like in Lord of the Rings. All right. So, now let's just head over to Cairo. Yeah, 2:30 in the afternoon. Oops. And from there, he checks out the pyramids, I'm sure. I'm sure they had a lot of parties. The Egyptians were happy to greet him. They didn't, it seems like they didn't care for the way the Persians were doing things. And that kind of makes sense. That still goes back to like the earliest Anunnaki stories of the wars between the Anunnaki. That they would have been in conflict with other factions in that area. I don't know who was right and who was wrong. Marduk got deposed in Egypt. Those are some crazy stories. Crazy. Okay. Now, let's go back over to Wikipedia again. And let me just get us right to Cairo. Or let's just put us right at Giza. Get out of the pyramids. Is that out here on this map? Tower. Want a different map. All right. We're going to spawn right on top of the pyramids. Let's spawn. Where's the Sphinx? Out here? Out in front somewhere, isn't it? Again, areas I don't really know 100%, but it's got to be right here in the same complex. That's it. Let's spawn here. I'm trying to remember how to... I think you might have to have something set up. Yeah. You have to have an arrival point set up to access navlog for it to show up. And if navlog shows up, then you can put how high you can control your spawn elevation. I don't want to be at 12,000 feet. Be at 1,500. Sakara down there. The red pyramid. The bent pyramid. Whole one, don't know. Supreme Council of Universities. Airport. A mosque. Casino. Cairo Tower. Egyptian Museum. Oh, they've got a helipad right over here. Looks like Himalayas. What do I know? Switzerland? Next guest. Pretty rugged. I think it's taking a little longer because I preloaded the maps. Bed music, background music, Hio Hio by Arthur Yoria. Alright, here we go. Oh boy. Very dramatic.
The Giza Pyramid Complex, also called the Giza Necropolis, is the site on the Giza Plateau in Greater Cairo, Egypt that includes the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Pyramid of Khafra, and the Pyramid of Menkaure, along with their associated pyramid complexes and the Great Sphinx of Giza. All were built during the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom of Ancient Egypt. The site also includes several cemeteries and the remains of a workers' village. The site is at the edges of the Western Desert, approximately 9 kilometers west of the Nile River in the city of Giza, and about 13 kilometers southwest of the city center of Cairo. The Great Pyramid and the Pyramid of Khafra are the largest pyramids built in ancient Egypt, and they have historically been common as emblems of ancient Egypt in the Western imagination. They were popularized in Hellenistic times, when the Great Pyramid was listed by Antipater of Sidon as one of the 7 wonders of the world. It is by far the oldest of the ancient wonders and the only one still in existence.
Oops. Tour buses. Taking everybody home for the night. There's an inscription on this. We're unable to make out. I don't have an Egypt pack. Wonder if that exists yet. Makes it look like one of his eyes is up higher than the other one looking in this direction. Or a wart above his eye. It's like he's got two eyes. So let's see what he was looking at. What is the Sphinx looking at? All right, let's level us out a little bit. And let's use our superpowers and change time. Can't make this smaller. That is neat. Wish we could, actually, you probably can go back and set a date and time. Who knows if it'll give you the night sky accurately. Probably will. I'll turn back on the lights here in just a moment. But I want to get up on top of one of these pyramids and look up. It's midnight. It's like the center is over here. Okay, there's the sun going down, 6 p.m. That's Orion. You see what I mean about it spinning on the... imagine a point below us and to our left, where if we were to spin it, it would spin almost in a perfect circle. That axis point. Okay. Go to the GAZA pyramid and do the same thing. That's a lot closer to a center point. So everybody, again, you know, when we were growing up, they taught us that, you know, that these are tombs. Now, I don't believe anybody's that important for people to go out of their way. You know, everywhere else in the world, it's like, you know, maybe you get a building this size down here. And that was pretty magnificent. Like, yeah, this dude must have been pretty amazing. Check out this thing built for him here. And then, wait, what? I suppose, but I really recommend, if you have never heard, or you don't watch Ancient Aliens, but even Ancient Aliens, I'm really mad at them. They'll do 14 seasons and still won't get to the point. I don't think they've still gotten to the point. They've never brought, as far as I know, that I kind of gave up on them after a while because they won't get to the point. they couldn't bring it all together. So they couldn't take the tablet translations. They don't take the tablet translations from Persia and Babylon and go back to pre-Gilgamesh and link it all into one big story out to here and beyond. And so in our mind's eye, as we're learning this stuff, it's all like separate things that happen that aren't connected. But the Sumerian tablets from Persia tell a completely different story about what these are, who built them, and what transpired over here at one point in time. Now, from an Anunnaki perspective, this is where Alexander's starting to get major red pilled, in my opinion. Because in those stories, men did not build these. I mean, we may have been used to build these things. But if the tablets are correct, we are back to the time of the Anunnaki. As something falls off my desk and hits me. Okay, now the Anunnaki came from Nibiru. And simply, the mission was gold. They were attempting to suspend gold in their atmosphere for scientific reasons to preserve life on their planet. Their celestial conditions being that they orbit so far out that they bleed off too much heat. I don't know. Whatever. But that's what they tell us is the reason why the Anunnaki had to do a run to Earth and set up shop on Earth to begin mining massive quantities of gold, which was actually rare on their planet and rare on most planets. Or at least, you know, those other planets are too inhospitable for them to set up any activities. Okay, so they built these. And they're like, well, it must have been earthquakes or plasma discharges or other things, horrible catastrophe that knocked a lot of the stuff off and destroyed a lot of the surfaces. And they've tried to blame it on everybody scavenging. And I'm not saying that they didn't scavenge surface stones for the building of modern cities and all that. But you can imagine how painful and how silly they would have felt doing so. I would think that it's like, come on, they made all their stone. We can't make our own new stone to build our own stuff. Let's go strip the pyramids. I don't know. So there was a war that took place here between Anunnaki forces in the Sumerian documents. And they've been here for 100,000 years plus or more. And the guy that claims he's currently in charge is Marduk. And after he was deposed, they called him Amun-Ra, the hidden god, Amun-Ra. Okay, he believed, as I understand it, that him and his son were supposed to be the next people put in charge of running operations in this area of the world, or in charge of all operations across the planet. And you've heard the term Naboo before from playing Star Wars. That was his son. His son was Nabu. Okay. Now, what caused the war? Not only did he want to be the ruler of that period of time and succession to go to him, but he was a schmuck and he caused drama to happen. So now let's go to someplace down in Africa, right? And here in Africa, there's two young lovers. And so let's go with like a Romeo and Juliet kind of story or whatever. There's two young lovers and they're happy. And the boyfriend decides he's going to go down into Africa to do some stuff. Okay. But either way, Marduk causes, I don't know, some situation. Brings up some scandal between them. Or he makes it public that there was a scandal. I think that's the reason why he ran off. The boyfriend, that may have been the reason. It's been a long time. I'm trying to remember it. So he splits to go hide in Africa out of embarrassment maybe, or whatever the situation was that Marduk caused. And everybody was really mad at him. You know how it is. You let people's dirty laundry go and it's a scandal and everybody's and he got really hated for it. Well, while her boyfriend, this girl's boyfriend, was down in Africa, something bad happened on his expedition or just visiting or whatever, and he died. All right. So I think it may have, I want to say it was maybe Anana or somebody else, but so now she goes down there, I guess, to get his body. Boy, it's been a long time. So Anana goes down to retrieve his body, I think. And there's another faction of Anunnaki that control all the mining operations in southern Africa. And they're known to be like totally evil, like lawful evil people. Dark, dark, dark Africa. So she is, but they're related. They're still all weirdly family. But so she goes down there and they capture her and they kill her. Now, she is the granddaughter to the king on the planet Nibiru. And so it's either he and the powers that be also directly underneath down here on Earth. Either he dispatches or they dispatch. It seems like an android. Seems like something right out of Tony Stark. They dispatch this entity to fly down to southern Africa and retrieve her body. And if he can get there in time, which he does, to bring her back from the dead. You know that whole, well, she's mostly dead. He's mostly dead. Okay, but the way they describe it is she's dead. But she's just not fully dead. She's just mostly dead. So this entity goes down there and he tells them, you bad guys, you've made everybody mad. You are bad, bad people. And he brings her back to life. Now, what I failed to mention is how she got there. Inanna, throughout history and statues and everywhere else across the world where she appears, she is known to be a lover of flying. And so the way the story goes is Inanna flew her airship down to Africa. Because what it says next is she was so pissed off after being brought back from the dead because of everything that had happened. She radioed her family, which controlled the regions north of here, as I understand it, all up north and out that way. She called all of her family up, and she says, I'm attacking. So she flies back from South Africa after being killed and resurrected, and she starts shooting missiles from her aircraft down to where the residences of Marduk was at the time. So Marduk has to flee lest he be missiled to death. And he goes and he hides inside this structure. Okay. And not only that, when he gets inside, he cuts the ropes that holds the giant blocks of granite, these 3 giant granite sheets. He cuts the ropes on those so that they seal him inside. So what this structure was built for, according to the Sumerian tablet translations, these were beacons, and though they had a lot of other powers as well, but they were mostly celestial navigation for crafts coming and going between Earth, Mars, and Nibiru. And installed in the causeway going up to the chambers were all these power objects, power stones. And those allow you to... So at this point, all of her brothers are coming in. And they're all shooting missiles and firing artillery. They're whatever, they're aerial machine guns and missiles. And they start shooting this thing to kill Marduk. And inside of this pyramid, they said that he was able to unleash his own energies and shoot them out of the sky. He used the power of all those different stones and whatever, and he was able to hold them off. But they vowed they were going to kill him for starting all this crap. And the word came down from above is that only a king can kind of kill a king thing, and that they cease and desist while they come together and bring the grand jury together and discuss what the fate of Marduk should be. So it came down that Marduk was to be deposed. Right. He wasn't really guilty. I mean, he talked a lot of crap and he caused a lot of bad things to happen. But just by you uttering things doesn't make things happen. Things just happened. You know, he was definitely the cause, but that's all he did, is he just opened his mouth. And because he said stuff happened. But he's not going to be held guilty for just speaking it. But they did want to they stripped his power at that point. He wasn't going to be the ruler of either all of this or operations on Earth anymore at that point. So he flees to one of the temples in the south and goes into hiding. And that's when I believe that they say he got the name Amun-Ra, God in hiding. Okay. Now, why did I tell you all that? Because that's the kind of information that the priests and the scholars, the real deep ones, here in Egypt would have been conveying, in my opinion, to Alexander the Great. Yeah, there's deities, but did they really live? Am I part of this lineage? Am I part of this am I part of these bloodlines? And the Egyptians went with it. But they know more than we knew. They definitely know more than we do. Because they told him straight up, yeah, you are. So they have the full histories. They know what happened all the way from before the flood, all the way up to this period. And they know what factions went where in the world and whose bloodlines would be connected to whose bloodlines. So there is absolutely, in my mind, the possibility that Alexander the Great, Philip, whomever his mother was, those are bloodlines related to the kings and the families that the Anunnaki started putting in charge as they started leaving the earth. So there's a big transition period as they're all leaving the earth. It takes place over long periods of time. And Inanna, again, was also responsible for putting a lot of men in charge, like Sargon. She was also known as Isis. Okay. So when you hear Isis, it's Inanna, the flying one. So these are the kind of things that now Alexander's going to be hearing, but he's not going to be sharing. This is still information for him, and his people later won't understand. They absolutely will not understand or accept what he's going to learn. Okay, we've covered here enough, and I think I think you get it now, that what I've been saying along the way, that he's going to start getting red-pilled. If you have never heard those stories, or the stories that I just told you, you're probably getting a little red-pilled at the moment. What? What? How come I have never heard any of these stories like that about the pyramids? Oh, let me finish that story real quick. Inside the pyramid is exactly what is described. The different chambers, the 3 granite blocks, the cut ropes, and the holes made in the pyramids to get him out, to extract him. But when Inanna's brothers or family members landed and they finally extracted Marduk from the pyramid, he went in there and he went up the gallery, and they describe that in the Grand Gallery today in the Pyramid of Giza, you will see it as you travel up the Grand Gallery. Along the side of the walls, there's these cutouts, these holes, these squares. And in the text, it describes that in those notches were all of the power stones or power devices. And that when one of the heroes, they call him a hero, went in there after Marduk was extracted, power was turned over to their family. And he went in and he destroyed, or they say he took his baton and he smashed a lot of those stones going up into the chamber. Or he took them. And when he got into the chamber, where they call it the king's chamber, where the king's tomb is, and it's got that cracked corner, they say it's the king's sarcophagus was in here, and somebody cracked the corner of the sarcophagus trying to extract him. Well, that's not what the tablets say. The tablets say this hero went up the causeway, smashed all the stuff, took the stuff, got into the chamber, and used his baton to smash the corner of the box that held the Gug stone. A power stone that could be used, that was a beacon. Either highly radioactive or some sort of, they call it the Gug stone, an object that can be detected in deep space, from deep space, and used as a navigational beacon to come to Earth and leave Earth. The hell kind of stone is that, man? So they took all those. They took everything that was inside the pyramids and they dispersed them to other different landing locations up north and around the planet, as I understand. Okay, so turning north from here, Alexandria. Make sure the autopilot's off. So going out there into the desert, Alexander, he is going to make a journey. And they said most people that tried going there never came back. But like a lot of people have tried and many have died. And he's like, dude, I just came all the way down from Macedonia and crossed everything. And then I went up to King Midas's place. I've been everywhere. And you're telling me like this 30-mile journey is going to kill me? No. So him and his buddies packed up. And they're going to head on a journey out there to the temples where they're going to, again, you know, red pill him with a lot of this stuff. And they're going to really set it into his mind that he is a deity. He is of Anunnaki, or again, the people that they put in power. Man, this must have been, you know, again, I've never been to Egypt, but you know, we've seen that excavation over there, and there's so much that's never been seen. There's still so much that we don't know. All the talk of the city underneath the city. Emerald tablets, and you know, it's so easy to believe. People are like, you can't believe that stuff, that's all, it sounds like fairy tales. Man, if you read when you're dealing with aliens now who messed with our DNA and did all this crazy stuff to us, everything's believable. It's all believable. I think we should speed things up and do the Google thing and teleport right to Alexandria. So let me go get the coordinates. Okay, so directly ahead of us and out on the coast. It's already 3:20, yeah, so let me go ahead and just speed up. Normally I would, you know me, I love doing the flights. I like the hours. I love sightseeing everything at a slow pace, but we need to move it along. There's just so much to do still in his journeys, and we're not even gonna, you know, again, we're just scratching the surface of everything that he did. Okay, so there we are. Now we're going to go pretty much almost straight north, I think, and then just like 270. Yeah. Okay. This is Alexandria. He started having them build this city before leaving Egypt. And I believe, and I don't know, there's a documentary currently out about locating the place where he's buried. They talk about the main road. And I just don't know. I don't know where that is exactly, but he named a lot of cities and created a lot of cities. And so it could be anywhere over here. It's just so huge. But let's spawn right here. Let's see what he didn't have any battles, but let's try to see what the Kings and Generals channel had to say about this. Oops, this period. Because this is where he was at Tanis.
Realized his unstable position and received Alexander with friendship, granting the king open access to Egypt and its treasuries. From Pelusium, Alexander sailed up the Nile to Memphis, the ancient capital of the Nile kingdom in its days of strength. In contrast to the first Achaemenid conqueror of Egypt, Cambyses, who is said to have profaned the divine Apis, Alexander showed himself as a friend by offering the god special sacrifice. Then, on November 14, 332, the priesthood at Memphis placed the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, symbol of the pharaohs, onto Alexander's head and gave him the traditional scepter and flail. The ruler of Macedon was now also pharaoh of Egypt, god and king all at once, son of Ra and Osiris, Horus the Golden One, beloved of Amen. For a man who had always been curious about his potentially divine origins, given the words of his mother Olympias, the impact of this latest enthronement can hardly be understated. The new pharaoh departed Memphis in January of 331, sailing towards the Mediterranean until he reached Lake Merotis. There, inspired by the quality of the site opposite the island of Pharos, Alexander ordered that planning and construction efforts on a new city begin immediately. So enthusiastic was Alexander about this new project that he supposedly designated the layout of the town and the limit of its defenses himself. That city would, over the next few decades, become Alexandria, the cosmopolitan capital of the ancient world. While his architects and laborers continued preparatory work on the new Greece-facing city, Alexander found himself consumed by a sudden desire to visit a famous oracle of the god Zeus Ammon. This religious figure had previously been consulted by King Croesus of Lydia, Athens during the Peloponnesian War, and many other historical giants. It was seen with equal reverence to the oracle at Delphi. The problem was that this oracle resided within a desert oasis known as SIWA, fully 300 miles distant to the west. Alexander no doubt wished to discover more about his divine parentage, and the SIWA oracle was the perfect place to receive this godly information, given that the Egyptian Amen and Greek Zeus were generally viewed as different interpretations of the same god. It is said that during a war among the gods long ago, the Hellenic pantheon transformed into animals and fled to Egypt. Aphrodite, for example, was said to be Isis under another name. Other less esoteric motivations were also present. A crucial stage of the campaign against Persia was upcoming, and divine backing would be a great boon. Setting out in late January with only a small band, among whom was the future Egyptian ruler Ptolemy, Alexander traveled 170 miles west along the coastal road and eventually reached the small settlement of Peritonium on the borders of Cyrenaica. There, the adventuring king received a delegation of emissaries from Kyrene. They granted him a number of grandiose gifts, including fine horses and chariots, and he concluded a treaty of peace and alliance with them. The party then continued on their way, turning inland from the Mediterranean. What followed was a grueling slog through the parched, desolate, and utterly inhospitable Libyan desert. The band's water supplies ran out 4 days into the venture, but they were saved by a great rainstorm that came just at the right time. Not content with just dehydrating the Macedonians, the desert then saw fit to disorient them as well. Khamsin desert winds picked up, blasting away all landmarks in a withering sandstorm that made Alexander's guides lose their bearings. Finally, almost a month after setting out from Lake Merotis, the party managed to follow a flight of birds to the verdant SIWA oasis, which they reached in late February 331. While the group remained behind and enjoyed the relative luxury of the oasis, Alexander went directly to the temple. The head priest, waiting for him, addressed the king as "Son of Amen, good God, Lord of the two lands," and then ushered him inside. As Arrian puts it, Alexander then put his question to the oracle and received the answer which his heart desired. Since not a single person, except Alexander, was permitted entry, nobody truly knows what the king heard in that temple, but whatever it was left an irrevocable and permanent impact on him. Plutarch, writing almost half a millennia later, tells us that Alexander, upon gaining entry, asked the oracle whether or not the murderers of his father had been punished for their crime. To this, the oracle responded that the king ought to guard his tongue, since his father was indeed immortal and therefore could not die. The implication is quite clear. Alexander the Great was the son of Zeus Amen, and therefore a divine being in his own right. There are several other tales in the ancient sources concerning this consultation, but they are likely also speculation. Sometime after entering, Alexander exited the temple and was met by his companions, to whom he would tell none of the details about what had been revealed to him.
See?
After rewarding the secret shrine with plentiful gifts of gold, the party returned to the embryonic city of Alexandria by the route they had come. The first indications of spring were now upon the Macedonians. After the relatively simple foray into Egypt, it was nearly time to resume the campaign against Darius III. Before the Titans locked horns again, however, there were important administrative matters to conclude. Leaving the great work at Alexandria in the capable hands of his builders, engineers, and architects, Alexander sailed south to Memphis, where he was once again infatuated by the ancient city's air of quasi-divine pharaonic majesty. The monarch was fawned on by his Egyptian subjects as though he was a deity on earth, and artists began depicting their new beloved ruler on temple walls across the country. Peter Green implies that Greek emissaries actually began to understand Alexander's change in personality and a newfound love for Oriental divinity, realizing that it could be exploited for their own ends. Several embassies of Greeks were waiting for the king at Memphis with petitions, all of which, Arrian tells us, were generously granted. It is tempting to say that their flattery might have swayed the king, but it is equally possible that a mix of success and elation at the SIWA revelation had Alexander in a good mood. Beyond mere emotion, Alexander also had a more pragmatic motivation to begin treating the Greeks more gently at the beginning of 331. As feared, Persian assistance had allowed Sparta's King Agis III to start making trouble at home. Throughout Alexander's time in Egypt, Agis had managed to take over most of Crete and stood poised to attack the mainland with a large mercenary force. The situation was a volatile tinderbox just waiting to be lit, and being unduly harsh to other Greek states seemed likely to make the situation explode more violently. Alexander paid special attention to the governance of Egypt, which he immediately viewed as both a plentiful cornucopia and a potential threat. It had presented two primary threats to occupying empires in the past: nationalist rebellions by disaffected natives, and attempts by devious governors to leverage Egypt's supreme strength in revolt against the larger empire. The king now set out a number of reforms, aimed at avoiding both of these nightmare scenarios. He separated the Nile Kingdom's administration into civil and military branches. Routine day-to-day bureaucracy remained in the hands of local Egyptians, a move which gained Alexander the favor of the locals. Not only that, but if those same bureaucrats began making a mess of things, the population wouldn't blame him. The traditional geographical division of Upper and Lower Egypt was also employed, with a district governor known as a nomarch serving as steward over each segment. Geographical divide and rule tactics of this kind were also used on the military front, although Greeks were employed rather than Egyptians. The country's eastern and western districts would be commanded by Cleomenes of Naucratis and Apollonius, son of Carinus, respectively. Macedonian garrison commanders were also instituted at Memphis and Pelusium in order to keep order in the delicate, fertile, and often revolt-prone breadbasket that was Egypt. With matters of governance finalized, Alexander took his whole army back north to Tyre.
Okay. Pause right there. Because now he's leaving. You know, that's got to boost a guy's confidence. You get red pilled, and then you find out you're one of the, you know, potentially good guys in the story. But you're still not at the heart of things. Right? So he has no choice. I mean, Darius and the Persians, the way that they currently are and are ruling, see, now that's the thing. It's so hard to pick sides. You don't want to pick sides because ultimately there's supposed to be one big happy family, but we all know how families are. So it really sucks because, you know, you find yourself on the side of one group of the family, and then you find yourself on the side of another group of the family, and you wish they would all just stop fighting because, you know, now you're generations out, and, you know, you don't want to you don't want to be fighting anymore. But my point where I was going with that, this is so wild, is where operations started. So when the hold on a moment, I'm still going. Okay, bye. All right. So when operations started on the planet, one, I don't think he was going to go down to southern Africa, even though that's probably where a lot of gold was. He's already loaded. He's loaded. And he finds out that potentially those people down south are just, you know, the worst part of the family. The dark arts, you know, just the worst. You know, I'm sure eventually he had, when Ptolemy came in, I don't know the history after that. Like, when did they conquer all of that? What did Ptolemy do with those people who ended up controlling southern Africa, all of that? Getting back to the point, is he still has to go to the heart of things. He's got to go to where the first landing parties started setting up shop, and that would be in the location of ancient Sumer and ancient Ur in Mesopotamia. And so he's going to go back up to Tyre, they said, and He still has to. Darius is now creating a giant field in which to do battle. He's custom creating a war field to engage Alexander when he comes out of Egypt. He wants to fight him. He wants to try to change the odds in his favor. So he's out east setting up for a big fight to do just that. So Alexander has to deal with him, and then he's going to go. Alexandria is huge. He's going to go to the source. Because even out here in Egypt, who knows how much of the story that they actually had? You know, how much did they actually know? Going back to the first operations, the first places that they set up to start mining gold. And it wasn't just a couple of them. They brought their own army of specialists down here. So certain places around the world, it'll be nice if one of these places triggers my memory and I can say, okay, there was this guy that came down in the landing party and his name was Dan. Really? You're like, come on, man, you're pulling my leg. His name was Dan? Yeah, his name was Dan. No, really. His name was Dan. Right? And he was one of the guys in the initial landing party. And I can't remember what his specialty was, but it's, you know, he sticks in my mind. I think it was just building stuff, maybe, you know, like construction or whatever. So he was in charge of doing things like that. And when people were employed to help, they were certain people were taught by Dan, and so they named places after him. So as you know, it'll be great if we can just accidentally stumble on one. If not, maybe I can find one, like Lake Dan, Mount Dan, out here in Mesopotamia. This is still all Alexandria. Go ahead and get the drone full speed. Oh, I can't wait till we have better maps and I've got a better computer. I'm surprised it's doing it this well and handling moving around this well. Apologize for any stutters, but I've tried turning everything up to the best I can without freezing her up. Well, they've managed to leave that as an open space. Of course, you got to have your games. We don't have on behalf of Microsoft, they haven't done a world update for Egypt. As far as I know, there's no Middle East, Mesopotamian, there aren't world updates. So you're thinking, really, this is the best Microsoft's got? It's, you know, it's all with agreements. It's all got to be done through agreements. And for whatever reason, you know, it hasn't happened yet. Will it happen? I would imagine so, but I don't know. I know with Simulator 2024 coming out later this year, we're supposed to have better and better and better cities. This still isn't bad, you know. I mean, this is still pretty darn amazing. I can't believe we're still in Alexandria. And it goes, and it goes, and it goes, and it goes. Not bad. It was interesting that they made the point in that video by saying he was the only one allowed to go in there. He was the only, you know, we don't know. We ultimately don't know what stories they told him. Now I'm thinking again, if he's being told even a small percentage of what I've told you, I mean, the story just changes so dramatically. I mean, you know names, and you know this guy. I'm the son of this guy, and bloodline to this guy and this guy. But now what? Other planets, other families, giant families. And that these people live a super long time. I don't know if it was a story about Alexander the Great that I'm remembering now, but I know that people have, maybe that is in the book. I've got to read the books again. There's a story coming back to my mind right now about him going to see the tomb of Marduk and Nabu. Because the Anunnaki, as a superior alien race, they're not gods either. They're not gods. They're basically mortals as well, with advanced technology. So, you know, when I'm speaking about them, I'm not speaking about gods. I'm speaking about basically mortal beings with superior technology, and that's it. And bloodlines, so, you know. But when they live here, they know how to live a really, really, really long time. And that's what Gilgamesh was after. Gilgamesh was after the food or the recipes, or what did they eat? You know, what sustained them for so long? Were they naturally super long lived? Or, you know, is it something that they ate? And so that's also what he's got to go find out. Gilgamesh at one point, I guess, had it that the tragedy of Gilgamesh is that Gilgamesh had whatever he needed to become immortal, and he lost it. Or there was an accident or whatever, and he had to sacrifice it to save somebody, maybe. Something heroic. But that he gave up his opportunity to make that transition to live a lot longer. Okay, I wanted to find SIWA, right? So I'm typing in SIWA, Alexander the Great, and I want to see if there's a wiki on that. And right off the bat, there isn't. Let's just type in SIWA. SIWA Oasis. And they talked about Alexander's men stayed at the Oasis. Okay. So I've got... I have the coordinates now. Okay. Punch that in, Scotty. And there's the location of the SIWA Oasis. Why Alexander, once he left here, wanted to go back to Memphis or go down south and travel the length of Egypt again? I would think that it would be to now get more history on everything. You know, all the major locations that they built, that the Anunnaki were responsible for either building themselves or having us build. Okay, good. The controller switched. Or not. Well, we don't want that view. Yeah, that's what we want. Oh, really? The drone camera doesn't want to work with this configuration? Interesting. Okay, they stayed in the oasis and he went to the temple. Whoa. This is, to me, the only thing in the area that stands out right off the bat as a temple complex. Could be wrong. There are those structures over there. This could all still be part of it. That looks like there was stuff over there as well. Anytime there's a mound, any place there's a mound, controls are a little bit different on this setup, so pardon any bouncing around. Okay, definitely something there and there. All right, oasis area. That could be it there. I mean, if there's an oasis nearby, that definitely looks like something important. Maybe. When you zoom out, when I zoom out, it's almost like you can see a little bit more detail. I mean, look at that mound out there. But when you zoom into it, you actually lose detail. See, I'm seeing potentially what could have been walls and structure, rooms, and then I zoom into it, and it starts blowing apart. You have to squint. But as we start pulling back, you start seeing the structures better. If, could be a trick of the eye, but knowing all the development that took place in the past, and, one of the thoughts that comes to mind is, well, why would they build this temple all the way out in the desert where, it was horrible to get to? And you're thinking, well, maybe that was the reason why. Because they don't want people going out there. And sadly, again, as we look out, and always look for mounds at this point, and see all these mounds, leads me to believe that there may be stuff out there too. Okay, so what happened? As the Anunnaki story goes on and the fights between the factions start increasing, they brought in their starships, they came loaded with weapons, as you should do when traveling the stars. You should have some super powerful weapons with you, like photon torpedo stuff, right? Well, they had them, and I don't want to get into what their purposes for having them were for. They had scientific purposes for them, the best I can say. Let me go into to say that. But they had plenty of advanced weaponry, but specifically these ultimate bombs. And they got into a fight that was so bad that they ended up misusing the bombs to wage war on each other. And you may have heard in the course of your life the term the law of unforeseen consequences. All right. The law of unforeseen consequences. And that is when you do something, and as it sounds, and the result of what you were expecting completely goes the wrong way. You fumbled. You rolled a fumble. And so what you were expected to do has an unexpected result. So what happened? They detonated multiple potentially nuclear weapons or worse. And either through doing so or just the planetary winds, a storm happened. Or a giant, like you get these giant sandstorms. The weather immediately changed the moment that these weapons were detonated, and it blew all of a significant portion, the majority of the fallout onto those who detonated the weapons, doing more harm to them. They obliterated their targets, but the fallout is even worse, can be even worse to the, everybody else. And anyway, it all blew back on them. And so as we're traveling around, you're like, man, this was the location of one of the most amazing cities the world has ever seen. And it looks like this. How could you have one of the an ancient wonder look like that? Well, now you have one new thing in your arsenal to think about. Where did it take place? Where was one of the locations of the detonations? One of them is the only one that completely sticks out in my mind is the Sinai Peninsula. Okay. Now, they said if you look at the Sinai Peninsula from the air, the southern tip is black. So they say. I've really honestly never looked in Microsoft Flight Simulator to see if there's a noticeable color variation in the Sinai Peninsula at the tip. Okay, they said what it did is it charcoaled all the upper layer of stone, and that if you are on the Sinai Peninsula and you flip stones over, the bottoms are normal, just earth color. All right. Yeah, look at how dark this is, this tip. So that's one Sumerian tablet story, or through the research of Zechariah Sitchin, that story sticks out, that one of the detonation points was near here, turned all of this dark. And so, yeah, again, where the winds changed and blew, and it blew back on them, and I'm guessing that it's this way. I honestly don't remember the stories enough to say, but I know that the forces from the north, I believe, had come down. They're the ones that deposed Ra. And I think Nurgle, who was the guy that detonated it, was working for, I don't know, maybe working for Ra. So, in which case, it all blew and started taking all this out radioactively. So that's how I think about these places now, is we're going to be traveling over here. Alexander's going to be traveling. He's got to go fight Darius, and then he has to travel to where a lot of this stuff started. And Susa, if I can just quickly find it, was over here somewhere, I think. And that was their current gem city. But again, what we're going to be looking for when we get over here, there's Baghdad and Babylon area. But when we're out here, when we get over here, what time is it? 4 o'clock? I should do an evening show tonight. I really have nothing going on. And go over here. And we're going to be looking for the city of We're going to be looking for, I think it's called Eridu. We're going to look for Sumer, ancient Sumer. And try to get those found on the map and survey those. Because that's where a lot of the stuff started, the mining operations. Yeah. And then Alexander's going to be now what's going on at that period with the Anunnaki on this side of the world? And the reason why it remains unscathed for the most part, I mean, they all have their internal stuff going on. When we if we ever get over there, I'll try to hit you up with some stories on why I think the architecture looks the way it does, and it all revolves around potentially who was in charge over here. So Alexander's going to be starting to come into here, and things are going to get really freaky for him, and that's where he's like, I don't think I can handle that anymore. And he turns around and starts he heads back. And at this point, when he heads back, he's going to be pretty much fully as red-pilled as you can get. He's going to know, I think, at that point, everything. And this is where the people that are around him just don't get it. And I can't even imagine those directly outside of his sphere of influence, those the closest to him. That anybody beyond that, aside from the truly scholarly and intelligent, I suppose, not the average soldier, they won't know anything. And for them to not understand what he knows, to me, that's where the problem is. It's too giant of a leap for them to even comprehend what's going on in his brain. Yeah, okay. So if Christine doesn't need me this evening, I'm sorry about last night. Wicked headache. First time in a long time, I just closed up shop, shut everything down, took some aspirin, and went to sleep. That's not me at all. I mean, that lets you know how weird last night was with this headache. Like, I'm out. Good night. And so didn't come back for a 7 o'clock show. Tonight, I have to be a little bit more flexible. If Christine needs me to do things, then tonight is one of the nights for me to do things. And if not, then I'll shoot for 7 o'clock. If I'm not on the dot at 7 o'clock, it's not going to happen. But I'll, as always, I try to get at least the cover art up if I'm going to go, and something will appear. I'm always trying to be set up to go at least 5-10 minutes before I go live. So if you don't see anything 5-10 minutes before an expected time, yeah, it ain't happening. Okay. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I really did. I really like using the Kings and Generals channel to illustrate these battles. And now it's going to get good. I mean, if, again, one gentleman in another video pointed out, we romanticize it so much. It's so romanticized, but we forget how many people are dying in all of this. And yeah, it is quite tragic. But as far as just action and adventure goes, it's getting ready to come to a complete and total head. Bam, this is it. Again, Darius is staging. He's out there having his men terraform an entire area just so he can go to battle. That's some pretty kingly power. It's like, you want to have a war? Let's have a war. I'm going to set up war central. And so that's what he's doing out here. I think he's up in here right off the bat. Yeah, there's Mosul. Or maybe that's one of the places he flees to, which I'm giving away the story. But yeah, everybody knows the story. You know how it's going to go. I don't believe it's too far from there, because I think, yeah, that's his flee point. Which is surprising. A lot of major players in world history in these conflicts. Most recently, the Iraq with Saddam Hussein and his kids, I think. This is where they got it too. People getting taken out at this place in history. It's funny, this place is called Batman. No, Batman Air Force Base or Air Base. We'll try to find Dan Lake. I gotta prove it to you, because I know you're still probably not believe me. His name was Dan. Dan was the guy in the landing party. Yep, Dan. So we'll try to find Lake Dan, or any settlements that Dan particularly had a hand in. And things then get really crazy after Mosul. Get really, really weird again. Okay. Do. This has been episode number 139 of The Adventures of Kinius, the Skydude. If you don't know, you're like, what? You didn't tune into the start of the show? Or any of the other shows? After being bitten by a radioactive bird, yours truly, somewhat mannered, T. Tuthill, was possessed to become Kinius, the Skydude. In all of my online activities, we all have our screen names, right? You're the name of your character. that you use online for all of your activities. Some people have multiple characters. They like that. I've never been that kind of guy. I'm like, I've had enough characters in my life, been enough people. I just want to be one person. Just one person. One more. That's it. My last character, this is it. And that is Kineas. So since the internet became the internet, I have been Kineas on the internet. Even before other Kineas showed up, I was on the internet first. I know it sounds like a big boast, but it's absolutely 100% true. At one point in time, there was one website. One. 10, 25, 50, 100, 500 websites. That's it. There were only 500 websites in existence in the world. In periods of like that, I was already on the internet and part of it. So my point with that is, I was Kineas then, and anytime I've done anything online, I've been Kineas. Because most of it's been freeform fantasy role-playing or gaming or, role-playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Kineas in Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Kineas in all the tabletop games, for the most part. I have actually recently created a new one because it was requested for a particular game. But if I can get away with it, I'm always playing Kineas. Doesn't matter what game universe I'm in or what game I'm playing. In Baldur's Gate, it's Kineas. In whatever. Here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, my screen name, Kineas 2020. For all my radio broadcasting stuff on the internet with Star Trek Online stuff, Kineas. That's who I am. So that's where that name comes from. And Kineas will see you at 7 p.m. if he's going to continue hopping from here. We have to go back north again. The tire, at least, and then he's going to go. So we got to come back up into here. And then start going east. So we'll do that. May do that at 7 p.m. this evening. If not, 1 p.m. starting tomorrow. As always, that's the normal start time. And there you have it. Yar. Background music, again, provided by Arthur Yoria. I like it. It's nice and mellow. That's it. All I gotta do next is hit stop streaming. And that's what I'm going to do next. Closing down the chat. Just waiting to hit stop streaming. Then I have to hit end stream on the YouTube. Okay. I'd really like to get the camping set so we can have a dog and lay out our tents and stuff when we're done flying around. We really need those for right now in SIWA. Anyway, see ya. I'm gonna hit stop streaming.